Welcome into the Trevor Staub Show, episode number 5. Today we have a really fun guest. We have Craig Kitchens. And you might be wondering, who's Craig Kitchens? Well, Craig Kitchens is the creator and founder of Idio Sports. Idio Sports kind of broke news earlier, I think it was last year now, with the creation of the first shoe specifically designed for disc golf. This is a really fascinating interview. Got to get a lot of insight on what went into the creation of that shoe and why this shoe could be the future of disc golf footwear. Let's get right into it. All right, so I'm here with a special guest. I've got the owner, creator, the founder of Idio Sports, Craig Kitchens. This is, for those of you who aren't familiar with Idio kind of like broke news a little bit on the disc golf scene when they came out with their Kickstarter for a disc golf specific shoe, a shoe supposed to be, really designed for the sport of disc golf, and people went nuts. The Kickstarter blew up, and everybody is anticipating their, Idiosyncrasy shoes. So, Craig, thanks for joining the show. You got a pair there?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So I think the best way to get started with this is let's just go all the way back to the beginning, because, I did some research and I saw this wasn't just some overnight idea for you. This is a long, 3-year process before you even had a prototype. So kind of take us back even before the creation of the shoe, where did the idea come from? But then, what kind of experience did you already have in your career that kind of allowed you to kind of turn it into a reality? What was that like?
Yeah, I think going into this, just sort of my career path and life experience, I feel like it set me up really well. I had a background in technical drawing and technical design. I've always been very a three-dimensional thinker, very mechanically driven. Grew up working on my own cars and designing things and reconstructing things. I think very mechanically and in a 3D space. But I really always hated that in that industry, design, mechanical, electrical. It was all very cut and dry. I enjoyed more free flowing artistic style design. And it was just kind of always a hobby of mine to sort of recreate things or make things better or alter things. And I think just that way of thinking for me really helped me conceptualize the shoe when it came time for that.
Yeah. So then, what was the first time that you kind of saw that niche in the market, that need for the disc golf shoe? What was the initial thing that sparked that idea?
I think it kind of sat in the back of my mind as I was growing with the sport. Being a new player, I wasn't thinking about it. This was 2015, 14 or 15. But then, as you start to really embrace the sport, you start looking at discs and disc collection and plastic and other equipment, bags, carts, all the other things that are kind of out there in the disc golf space to help the player. And so as I'm doing my own research for my own personal equipment and stuff, just kind of looking into what shoes are out there, what are people wearing, and there's so many different kind of trains of thought as to what everybody wanted in their footwear, and there really wasn't any type of standard. And so I went with, I guess, what I felt best, and I sort of went through a bunch of different shoes, playing around with different technologies, different fits, different cuts, just different materials, just trying out what works for me, because everybody is a little different, right? And it wasn't till I think it was 2016, I believe, 16 or 17. I went to Beaver State Fling for the first time, saw what a major tournament looked like, and as far as vendors and turnout and the size of the field and the spectators and there's nothing like disc golf where you can sort of just walk around a venue and be right next to James Conrad or right next to the number one ranked player in the world,
Right.
and just stand next to them without, any guards or security like pushing you back, and it was such a cool experience. And being able to see what, for me, from like, just my own standpoint, like I'm always thinking about gear, just like what is each person sort of using, and seeing that even amongst like top tier players, there was no standard. And that's where I really started to dig in and kind of think to myself, well, what would that look like? What would a disc golf shoe actually look like and kind of bring to the table? How would that be different? And that's where I started to really put like pen to paper, sort of say, and actually come up with some concepts.
Yeah, I mean, it's true that, like, especially where we are now with disc golf, shoes are kind of almost the missing piece as far as equipment goes for specifics for disc golf, because we have the discs, but like we've got the bags, now there's carts, and like slowly all these things, because there's not a lot that you need to play disc golf, but shoes are a very big, I think for a long time it was probably overlooked aspect of the game. And it kind of is like, if you're getting into disc golf from another sport, you kind of expect to like, just go down the list. Okay, I need to get the disc golf this. And then shoes is probably one of the first things you think of. And then you're like, oh, that's interesting. There is no such thing as a disc golf shoe. So then it kind of just leaves it up to the consumer, which I think is what it kind of initially, like back in the day, it created just this spread of, I mean, you saw every amount of shoe, like every kind of different shoe wearing. It was really until Paul started wearing the Terex and kind of had to deal with them that the trail runners really picked up steam. And just because like everybody was just kind of looking for a direction to go into, there was really no like common idea of this is what a disc golf shoe is. So talking about the Syncrasy. So the Syncrasy is, the first shoe, it's on right now. You can get an Idiosyncrasy for $129. Definitely a premium shoe price, but when you look at Adidas or other trail runners that are popular right now, their premium stuff is just as expensive, if not more, in a lot of cases. But you can find pretty good options for under that price point. So let's talk about what is Idio doing that is making you say, hey, I'm going to spend this $129 and get the Idiosyncrasy instead of getting, just the $100 pair of, Adidas Terex shoes. What's that separating factor?
Materials, for sure. Materials and construction methods are a big one. And I didn't want to kind of come in low and try to provide something that wasn't going to hold up. And disc golf it's a sport that we're super hard on our footwear.
Yeah.
And if I didn't give myself that margin to be able to access those higher end materials, I wouldn't be able to build a shoe that would actually benefit the user. So by kind of competing with that same price point, I'm able to develop a shoe that's just as high a quality as any of those other shoes, but you're going to actually receive benefits from that. Because yes, a Terex shoe is a high quality shoe. It's a great shoe. But what benefits is the user actually getting out of that? None, really,
right.
If any. I mean, they're going to get something on their foot, and that they're going to get some traction, but what is traction to the user? And that's, forward traction. That's benefits to what a runner would get out of that shoe, but it's not benefits to what a disc golfer might receive out of that shoe. And that's where we went in and designed our own outsole mold. We designed our own last, and the last is the shape. The last determines that overall shape and fit and feel of the shoe.
Okay.
So everything, like from the ground up, is very much built specifically to the shoe. And I mean, again, the Terex are great shoes, but they don't allow you to plant and rotate. They don't have a rotation point on them. They don't hold up to sidestepping because they have a laminate construction to their outsole.
Okay.
And so we're able to wrap our outsole up onto the sidewall like a court shoe. So there's a bigger contact patch there. There's a lot more glue and construction into that sidewall, so it doesn't just peel out and delaminate.
Okay.
And all these things they require research, they require materials, they require certain, construction methods and things. And in order for us to be able to build something which is entirely new in concept of its own, I would just be I wouldn't be doing the community as well, anybody any justice by trying to come in at a low price point, because we wouldn't actually be able to offer anything new.
Yeah, no, I think it makes complete sense to, this is a shoe that's designed specifically for our sport, and that alone justifies the markup in my mind. I think when I first saw the all the technologies listed with the Syncrasy shoe, I said to myself, this all makes a complete sense to me. But one of the reasons I really wanted to interview you is because I wanted to get an in-person explanation of kind of how each technology works specifically. Since you have kind of hands-on with the shoe, show me. So I kind of listed out the different technologies. One of the ones that I actually, you just kind of mentioned, is the way that trail runners, and this actually stuck out to me a lot, is the way that trail runners are basically meant for you to be moving forward, right? Whereas disc golfers, most of their throwing motion is a lateral movement. So when you do the omnidirectional tread, and like you mentioned with the outer sole wrap, that all makes a ton of sense to me. And I'm just hearing that explained and you being able to tell me about the different materials you're using on the edges, that's what I wanted to hear. So there was a few that I wrote down that I was curious about. The one that I think sticks out to most people with the Syncrasy is the drag on or drag and toe. I think that was that one hit home with me big time, because I am an all-time toe dragger when it comes to disc golf. I will shred any shoe. I'm wearing a brand new pair pretty much of Adidas Terex shoes right now, actually, and the paint on my right toe is already completely worn down to nothing. So when I saw that one, I was like, okay, regardless of that's a very black and white technology. Yes, the toe
Correct.
goes higher. I used to know guys who would add reinforced material to their toes. That one made sense. I was like, okay, so that's smart. But then I saw the other ones with the power plant and the X-Flex technology, and I was like, that makes sense when I'm hearing about it, but I kind of want to know with each one, specifically the power plant and the X-Flex, what is actually being done on the shoe to make those two technologies work.
Yeah. So just kind of backing that up a little bit, you remember I was talking about kind of watching all of the players at the Beaver State Fling, and sort of looking at elite level players.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to designing technologies, you have to kind of design to what the proper form is, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people might not rotate on the heel, but most players at a high level, they drive their weight through the heel because they actually, rotate away from the target. And so that heel ends up releasing. Well, the toe ends up releasing, and that heel has to plant and spin. So in order to do that, we created a pivot zone into that heel where that spin point is.
Okay.
So that allows you to plant, drive your power, but as your body starts to rotate around your heel, it gives you a place to release and pivot. Okay. Without your leg hanging up. It's just a natural pivot point on the shoe.
Is the difference kind of just in the shape, compared to a traditional trail runner? There's a little more give there?
Yeah, well, if the lug pattern continued all the way to the heel,
yeah,
then you would have increased traction back here.
Okay, I see.
Which wouldn't allow you to naturally rotate. If you look at a Nike court shoe or a basketball shoe, a lot of times they are planting and they're pivoting around their toe box.
Right.
And if you look at that toe box, it has that ring pattern. Well, that allows you to pivot.
Okay.
So it's not anything uncommon. It's just that we are applying these concepts in a way that benefits the player.
Smart.
Again, it's all just how can we benefit that player and the end user.
Yeah, no, that actually makes a lot of sense. So yeah, the other one I was wondering about was the X Flex. So go ahead and explain that one for me.
The X Flex is this area of relief right here, these cutouts.
Yes.
And this provides a flex point in the toe box. So when you're X stepping, when you go into that second or third step, whoever, however whatever foot you start on, and you start to cross, that foot has to pick up and rotate. So where you've got like a solid sole like this, a solid plate, this can be very rigid, and which in the back it is very rigid, which is beneficial. Again, this is going to hold and resist power because it's rigid and it's going to help you plant. But when you do need to rotate, or you do need to X step, or you need that flex for jump putting. So if you're jump putting or step putting and you're moving through your shot, you need to be able to roll up off that toe. So that's an area of relief that allows the user to get that articulation they need for certain shots.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So that makes a lot of sense. I guess what it comes down to, it seems like, is a lot of the, disc golf specific stuff is just, change. Yeah. There had to be a change in the shape and the mold of this shoe. Like there had to be somebody to kind of break away and make a custom shoe to perfectly accommodate it. So, that definitely makes sense to me. It seems pretty cut and dry. But, one thing I was wondering about is, cause I had, obviously disc golf is like so set on the trail running, like hiking type shoes right now, because that's kind of what we have. Right. When I first saw the Idiosyncrasy, obviously I mentioned but this is before I saw any of the technology or anything. I saw a picture of it. I said to myself, like, oh, it's just another disc golf shoe. Like there's like the tread on the bottom, like there's, it kind of it has the look, like forget the technology. The appearance is similar to a trail running shoe in a way. It has more of that hiker look to it. And I was just wondering, was there a thought process of like, hey, let's make sure we keep this looking similar to what the market already knows as a way to kind of get them into it? Or like, what was the thought process? Like, was there ever a thought of like, should we make this look completely different than the current shoe? Or did it just kind of end up working out that it looked that way? Or was there any kind of thought to that?
I think it just evolved naturally into what it is today. A lot of it has to do with that last, because that last does determine sort of the overall shape and feel of the shoe and the profile of the shoe.
Yeah.
And we used a last that's similar to like a tennis shoe, more specifically like an Asics tennis shoe, which has well known to be one of the more comfortable court tennis shoes there is.
Yeah, and they have that wider toe box too on those.
Yeah, and you can kind of see that in the profile. Where the toe box is wider. It's not thin like a running shoe. It's not narrow like a running shoe. It's a little wider. It does allow the foot to plant and the toes to spread out, which gives more comfort. It gives a bigger contact patch for your foot to plant and grip down as well. But I think just that overall sort of like last shape to the shoe really determines what it's going to look like. And since we were going for something that is robust, but yet sporty, which is kind of hard, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's kind of it definitely shows like it is robust where it needs to be, but it does also still kind of resemble a sporty kind of maybe trail running shoe.
Yeah, I think it does. I do notice in the top, that last mold of the shoe, it definitely has a little more of a slimmed down sporty look. I think honestly really what it comes down to is like we're so used to it now that whenever we see that sole with the like traction on it, we just think, oh, disc golf shoe. It's just kind of ingrained into the disc golfer at this point. But right. I think it'll definitely, I'm glad a lot of people bought the shoe because, I think once it gets into enough people's hands that, hopefully I think the proof is going to be in the actual usability of the shoe at the end of the day. That's what's going to matter anyways. So, one thing I wanted to ask was, as far as the company vision of Idio Sports, because, obviously you've broken into a new market with the disc golf shoe. I remember talking a lot when it first came out, kind of thinking about, what does that market look like in the future? The disc golf specific shoe, for you, like, do you have any plans to develop any products other than shoes? And then my other question was, like, is there any fear that, more of a mainstream shoe manufacturer could break into the disc golf market? And if so, like, what that could mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely valid. So I'll address the first question, which is kind of the future of Idio and its products. Mm-hmm. Before this morning, I had a design meeting. So we are already working on conceptualizing that next design. It's a long process. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, we had a lot of people order the shoe and put their faith in the idea. And part of that is, part of those margins we were talking about is you have to have room for growth. And there's so much that goes into, manufacturing, fulfillment, taxes, duties. I mean, there's just so much to it. But luckily, we had some room for growth in there. And I put that already back into, okay, let's start conceptualizing our next shoe, our next model. And that might not be for, another year or year and a half, or, who knows, because we want to put the same time into testing and research and design as we did with the first one to get it right. But I am beyond thankful and excited to be already thinking about that next model. And that's what, we want to keep doing in the future, is just keep expanding that lineup and keep growing the brand and, offer this kind of shoe for this type of player in this type of environment, and this type of shoe for this environment, and whatever it may be. And part of that is being able to, offer signature shoes for players too. Mm-hmm. Just like you've got, Jordans and Kyries, and in the skate world, you've got Macbeths, and you've got, you've got your signature models. And it's just the more that we can grow and expand, the more that we can help the industry as well, and really sort of just say hey, we're here to help disc golf grow and to continue to evolve and continue to serve our sport, because that's what Idio is at its core. Which leads me into the next subject, which is other companies, bigger companies getting into it. And, it's definitely possible. We've kind of seen, if you're sort of paying attention to some of the cues, we're seeing that already. Mm-hmm. I think it was Merrill is sponsoring the Ledgestone this year. Yeah. And it's a huge sponsorship, and it just goes to show that people are watching. I think the launch of this shoe and the company and the concept has kind of put into place has proven the market. Mm-hmm. And now the footwear companies are starting to go, oh, there actually is a real market here. Right. At the end of the day, I think Idio is sort of the, I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything like that, but, we sort of broke ground. Yes. And made that history, and we put that in place because, I put the faith into it early. And I provided the proof of concept early. So now the other companies are going to be looking at it going, hey, we want a piece of this. And that's great for disc golf. They have tons and tons of money. Yeah. I hope that we can continue to be that company that was founded by disc golfers for disc golfers. And I think there's room in it for both, for sure. I think, yeah. I have the difficult task of being the first to market. And that means I have to prove to everybody that what they are using up until this point is false, right? Or right. It's not a disc golf shoe.
It's not good enough, essentially.
Correct. And I have to prove that sort of my competition right now is everybody. Mm-hmm. But if If another company gets into it, well, that creates an ecosystem, and that creates that creates a market, sort of say, because now I just am competing with one other company.
Right.
You know what I mean? We're at this time, it's like everybody is my market, and I have to tell everybody like, hey, we actually have a disc golf shoe. Look at here. You know,
You know what? It's so funny because I had an interview with one of the guys from MVP, and he was talking to me about kind of like when their gyro technology broke in, how essentially you basically have to market to people with a product that is kind of new and different. When it's you versus everybody, you have to market to them and essentially say what you're doing is wrong. Like that's the hard part is how do you market to these people and essentially saying, I have the product that you should be using, because you're kind of like, there are a lot of people that are just going to reject that because they don't want to necessarily be wrong. And that can be tough to break through. What I will say is being first to the market when you're able to break through. And I think with the success of your Kickstarter and bringing on Nate Sexton was very smart, as he is such a likable player. I think that will be huge long term because of there's a lot of brand loyalty in disc golf. Obviously, if a huge footwear company gets in with a ton of capital, it could be tough. But I think just already, with the relationship of, Idio and the consumers, I think just being the first one there, you have a big head start on brand loyalty, because everybody that buys a disc golf specific shoe, is going to be going to the Syncrasy. So I think there's definitely a lot there.
Yeah, totally.
But then, so I was wondering, obviously the shoe market, other than the technology, half the battle is the looks of the shoe. And I think the Idiosyncrasy is a solid looking shoe, but soon as I start, I'm always looking to spend money on cool disc golf things. So I'm like, okay, so now I can buy these awesome shoes. So my initial thought was like, what are the plans for not only, new colorways, but then like, are we going to see like a high topped Idio shoe, like different kind of like, how kind of crazy are we thinking we're going to get with like the design possibilities?
Yeah, I think, like with my meeting this morning on design, this time we're looking at, what can we do differently that really isn't like anything we've seen. That's, we're trying to meet certain parameters, right?
Yeah.
How are we going to create something that's new that no one's really seen before, but that is also going to benefit our customer base, our end user, so we have to kind of like align these ideologies. Whereas this was a little safer in its design aspect.
Yeah.
One, because of funding, right? I funded this whole project myself. I dumped my retirement fund. I totally capsized my credit, like
wow.
everything, just to get to this point here, right? Well, now we have some support from the community and the Kickstarter, and we can kind of say, okay, we have our Syncrasy out there. That's kind of like our flagship. Like it's always going to be good because it really does benefit a wide range of players.
Yeah.
So now what can we do, as that is sort of our anchor, our rock, right? Now what can we do to extend into the market and reach some other people and do some fun, interesting things? So it's a fun process. It's the process that I enjoy the most. I'm even shaking talking about it because like I have this like social like sort of a disorder thing where I get really excited and I start shaking. Design and concept is like one of the most exciting aspects to me, and getting back into that now is really cool and fun, where I've had to kind of switch over into like business mode and marketing and budgeting and all this stuff, and that's not really where I like to live. I like to live in concept. So there's definitely going to be some cool things coming out and stuff.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm sure that's a lot of the fun is going with the design stuff and thinking about all the possibilities. I do agree that it was definitely smart. I think the design of the initial shoe was smart to kind of go with something familiar, and even same with the colorways. Even like they're very agreeable colorways that aren't necessarily gonna raise any flags for anybody. They're not going to divide anybody. There's something that everybody's kind of can like there. But I definitely look forward to the day when, I could buy some wilder colorways and stuff like that.
Cool. I appreciate that because I like it too.
Yeah.
I like to kind of branch out and do fun things.
Yeah. So I guess we'll kind of end with, we're still, everybody who went in with the Kickstarter, we're still kind of in that production schedule. So where is Idio at right now? Like what is the schedule looking like? When are people going to start getting these shoes in hand, and kind of what's the current schedule look like?
So currently we're kind of working through our mass production right now, getting everything made, and you can actually go to idiosports.com, and I've kind of got like a live tracker up there just to check in and see where we're at. But we're still on target for an April fulfillment date.
Nice.
To where we actually start to get the shoes out to our customers and whatnot. Yeah.
Perfect. And I can imagine that, you mentioned a lot of the, design work for the next stuff. I can imagine it's going to all like be a huge wave of just customer feedback that'll probably input a lot into future plans and designs as well, because just getting that mass audience to all develop new opinions and stuff will be super helpful.
Yeah, definitely helpful and interesting to wade through.
Yeah,
and pick those points and keep evolving. Everybody's always evolving and learning, and we're definitely going to do that. I think we have a great product. I'm not saying we don't. We have a great product to start from. I think what we've done and the work that we've put in has really showed. I mean, we just announced that I signed Adam Hammis to the team, and I mean, he put his foot in it one day. He was going to test it for a week, and he put his foot in it and went and played one day, and he was like, all right, how do I get on board? Like, I love these things. They're amazing. And so it just goes to show that I think the work really paid off. Yeah, definitely, like after this year, this will be a big year because it's our first year of actually having product on inventory, and we've got some extra product coming.
Nice. That's
going to go right into our fulfillment center. So there's going to be, on hand inventory to be able to purchase right off the website. And it's just going to be a big telltale of what that disc golf footwear industry will look like, and we can certainly pick up and learn a lot from.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely super excited to get my pair in hand. The more I've read kind of about, your creative process and how much work you've put into the design, like I've definitely become more of a believer of like, was it a really intentionally made product to kind of make a shoe specifically for our game. So, I'm assuming it's going to make me better at putting, right? Like it has to do that, surely.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm holding you to. So
your equipment, you buy equipment because it shaves strokes, right?
That's what I'm trying to do here is get better. So, but I'm super excited to get the shoes. I'm sure everybody is going to be really pumped about it. But thanks so much for joining the show. Really appreciate getting the insight and everybody getting a chance to kind of learn more about this awesome product that you've been able to make.
Thanks, man. I really do appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate you guys too, and everything that you put out, and your content, your presence, and I know we're all trying to grow the sport and evolve this thing, and it's an ever learning process. So thank you for having me on the show and giving me opportunity to speak to your platform, your customers, man. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and thanks again to Craig for stopping in and chatting on the show. Really awesome to hear about his product, and I'm excited to get my hands on the Idiosyncrasies and try them on and see what they're all about. But make sure you check us out again next Thursday. We'll be back here with a new guest. We'll see you.